Join me in a word of prayer. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So, how often do you drive down a road like you're coming home, and you really don't really pay too much attention to where you're going? Because, you've been on the road thousands of times before, and just driving. I'm not saying you're on a cell phone or anything, you're not texting, you're not doing anything illegal or irresponsible. It's just that you've been on the road so often, that you just assume that you know where you're going. And you've been on the road so many times that you figure, if I take my hands off the wheel, the car would know how to get home. It's been on the road forever, right? I would guess a lot of people do that, or it can't just be me. Okay. A few weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago or so, we had that snowstorm, and I was driving along a road that I've driven along 1,000 times before, and suddenly it was like, where exactly am I? I wasn't totally sure. I knew the road I was on, okay, but I wasn't sure where on this road am I? Have I gotten past Perry Lutheran Church yet, or am I still there? Where am I on this road? So all of a sudden, I began to pay attention to the signs on the side of the road. One sign said there was a curve ahead, and said, okay, there's a curve ahead. Okay, there it is, I see it now. Another sign said another curve ahead. Okay, now I know where I am now, because I'm following the signs. Okay, now I'm sure. That's at least one of the things that signs do. They show us the way to go. They're present in order to help us out so that we don't get lost. We follow the signs, and we'll probably get to where we're going. Signs, of course, can't do everything. The sign isn't going to prevent you from having a flat tire. No sign can do that. And the sign is not going to prepare you for there's a deer in the road, look out. And the sign can't tell you those kinds of things. But that's one kind of sign. Signs that show you the way to go. Follow the sign and you'll get there. I was kind of interested in that, so I looked up signs, the definition of signs. And there's other kinds of signs that we do. For example, if you're buying a house, or you're buying a car, or you're using your credit card to make a purchase, hopefully you don't do it at Target. But you're going to have to sign something, right? You're going to put your name on it. And when you sign that, what you're saying is that I will fulfill the obligation. I will pay this bill. I will be making a vow, a commitment, a contract that this will happen. That's another sign that we make. Another use of sign, another way to tell a sign is to suddenly think that, wow, my lower back is hurting a little bit, and boy, my knees and thighs are kind of hurting, and shoulders are kind of sore. I wonder what all that means. And your spouse may say, well, you should have stretched before you shoveled the snow. And then she may have said, well, I think those are signs that you're not 30 years old anymore. And your spouse may say, well, there may be signs that you don't need to shovel all the snow all one time. Now, if you're smart enough, you don't come up with some witty remark over that. You simply say, yes, dear. I believe you're reading your signs correctly. So, signs. A lot of signs. So let's go on for another thing. Let's talk about miracles. Now, what are miracles? They're kind of like surprises, right? Miracles aren't ordinary. Miracles are things that to show up. It's like, wow, I never expected that to happen. And miracles are always good things. That's why they're called miracles. And Jesus fed 5,000 people with just a few fish and a few loaves of bread. That was a miracle. Jesus healed the 10 lepers. That was a miracle. Miracles happen, but they're kind of out of the ordinary. They're not expected. They're just like, whoa, I never thought that would happen. So which would you rather have? A whole bunch of signs or a couple of miracles? It's not an either-or question. You'd like to have both, right? You want to have a lot of signs, and then if you have a miracle once in a while, that'd be really great. Both signs and miracles. So where am I going with all this? This year we're spending an awful lot of time in the Gospel of John. In the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, there are a lot of miracles all over the place. But in the Gospel of John, there are 0 miracles. John doesn't say anything that Jesus did is a miracle. But in the Gospel of John, there are lots and lots of signs. And you may think, I don't agree with that at all. Because we just heard this story about the wedding at Cana, and Jesus turned water into wine. That sure seems like a miracle to me. But in the Gospel of John, John says, no, no, no. In verse 31, John says that Jesus did this turning water into wine, and this was the first of his signs of the revelation of the glory of God. There can be a lot of signs in the Gospel of John, but no miracles, even though we may think, well, some of those seem more like miracles than signs. But John says, those are signs. Well, that doesn't mean nothing, we may think. Well, John's just using a different word. What difference does it make? Well, I think it does mean something, because we just notice the difference between miracles and signs. Miracles are those things that just pop out once in a while. It's like, whoa, I never thought that would ever happen. But signs are everywhere. Signs are all over the place. And we welcome signs. We look forward to signs. We want signs. We trust in signs. And that is part of what I think John is letting us know in his gospel. That when God became one with us in Christ, it wasn't just a miracle. And even though Jesus does a lot of miracles, that's not what John is all about. John's letting us know that God became one with us, and there are signs. God is one with us every day of our lives. Every time you see the signs, there's God's presence. For instance, the really big sign in this story of the wedding at Cana is not turning water into wine. The really big sign is the wedding at Cana. I mean, weddings, those are one of the biggest signs that there are. Our day of weddings has changed a little bit in what they all mean. Usually today, a couple has lived together for quite a while. Sometimes there's even a couple of children involved in the wedding and all that kind of stuff. And they own a house and all those things. And then they decide, let's get married. Let's have the wedding. So the wedding has taken on a little different imprint today in our lives, but it's still this commitment. This wedding means that this is the person that I will share my entire life with. We have made the decision. Our eyes are as wide open as it can possibly be to what's coming ahead, so that's the commitment we're going to make. And weddings are a sign to everybody else who attends the wedding and everybody else who knows these people that these people are now committed. And it's our job, which I say at every wedding sermon, it's our job to support this couple as much as we possibly can. Because the stronger their union is, the stronger we all become. God's presence is in the sign of the wedding. Of course, it's still just a sign. There's no guarantee you can have the perfect wedding, and the marriage can fall apart. There's no perfect sign. Another sign in the story is a sign that God really loves life, and God celebrates and enjoys life. After all, what is it that Jesus does? He turns water into wine. Now, there are all sorts of theological theories about what that all means, and we can probably go into that in a Bible study if you want to. But the fact remains, there's a whole bunch of water that's been turned into a whole bunch of wine, and the guests at the party have already drunk all the wine that there is, and now they have more. This has to mean that God really enjoys having a party, right? It's a sure sign, right? I sometimes wonder what the Puritans make of the wedding at Cana story. I mean, if you're not supposed to drink, you're not supposed to dance, you're not supposed to have any fun, then what do you do with the wedding at Cana story where God's making more wine? Someday this is going to happen. A few weeks from now, maybe a couple months from now. The sun's going to break out, and we're going to feel it on our face, we're going to feel it on our back, and we're going to say, wow, that feels wonderful. When the sun breaks out and warms our face and our back, God will also say, wow, that's wonderful. Because Jesus lived our lives, right? And so when the sun broke out and warmed his face and his back, Jesus said, wow, that's wonderful. God enjoys creation and God enjoys life. That's one of the signs of this story. Another sign of the story is a sign of trust. When Mary, the mother of Jesus, tells the servant to do whatever it is her son Jesus tells him to do, she is trusting that her son is going to make this right. Trust. Simple trust that things will be made right. Now that might be one of the toughest signs that we have, the sign of trust. I mean, Jesus is always telling people, don't be afraid. But it's hard not to be afraid sometimes when things just simply fall apart. We have had some recent deaths within our communities of Hollandale and Blancheville that have affected a whole lot of people. And we have had a lot of recent illnesses. We've had a lot of cancer going around in our communities. And it calls into question, what's going on? Where's God in the midst of all this? It calls into question a lot of trust. If all this stuff is happening, where's God in the midst of it all? Someone asked me the other day for a book that would help them understand the meaning of the Bible, and a book that would help them understand what it is that God is all about. I thought, boy, it sure would be nice to have a book like that. I don't have a book like that. The trust in God is a kind of a lifelong experience kind of thing. You can't just read a book and discover what it is. We just look at Psalm 23. One day, you're reading Psalm 23, and you have a lot of stuff going on in your life. You're just running to and fro, and you read Psalm 23, and you read where God says, I will give you the quiet waters. You think, that's what I need today. Some quiet waters. Another time, you're reading Psalm 23, and just horrible, horrendous things are happening to you, and you read the part about where the shepherd will be with you in the darkness of the valleys. You think, that's exactly what I need. We read the Bible, we read the Psalms, we react to God through different lenses of our eyes at different times and different experiences. We always read it with a different understanding. So trust is not something you can read about and say, okay, now I trust. It's a lifelong commitment. And sometimes trust is really hard to come by, because sometimes trust fails. What recently happened at the New Glarus nursing home was a betrayal of trust. What happened to the people in New Jersey was a betrayal of trust of their government. And when we start finding that people whom we have trusted have failed us, we start wondering, well, if everything else and everybody else is failing us, where's God? Does God also fail us? We just need to keep looking for the signs. Jesus made it right at the wedding of Cana. He did turn water into wine. And Jesus ultimately makes it right by the ultimate sign that God gives us. And that's the sign of the cross. Simply saying this is it. As the Apostle Paul once noted, the cross is foolishness to all those who don't believe. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. But to those of us who believe, why, it is the sign of God's enduring forever love for us for all time. That nothing will ever break it. The cross tells us that. Well, back to the beginning. Signs are everywhere in our lives. And I think that's the reason, or at least one of the reasons, why John talks of signs of Jesus instead of miracles of Jesus. Even some of the signs which we would call miracles. And looking and reading John, we're going to see all sorts of common, everyday things that John connects Jesus with. John is going to say Jesus is the bread of life. John is going to say Jesus is the living water. John's going to say that Jesus is the light of the world. How much more common and everyday can you get than bread and life and water? John is using the common things and saying Jesus and God is embedded in all the common things of life, embedded in all the signs that you have. The water being turned into wine is a sign of the revelation of the glory of God, the Son of God. The sunrise of a new day is a sign that God is creating a new day of life for us. The sign of a smile on a child's face is God saying, I really enjoy life. The sign of the snow is a sign that God says, I give you a lot of variety in your lives. Spring, summer, winter, fall. Each season filled with its own sense of wonder and glory. And when our eyes grow weary at the end of the day and our heads hit that pillow at night, it's a sign from God saying, I need you to rest now. I need you to be refilled so you can meet the new day ahead. Signs, they are everywhere. And that's the thing. God is everywhere. Amen.